We're gonna. So first and foremost, um, one burger today. Uh, Hamburger, ketchup and mustard instead. Um, add onions, add pickles. One Diet Coke, light ice, and the ketchup. And as you know, we don't count the ketchup. We don't track the ketchup because nobody ever got overweight or gained a bunch of body fat because they ate too much ketchup. So, um, first and foremost, you know, this burger is going to be delicious, so we're just going to get into that real quick. Of course. All right. So, a question that I wanted to answer, this comes from one of my coaching groups. We were talking about, let me see if I can pull it up on. So one of my good friends, he's also a strength and fat loss coach, Matthew Heaton. He has this question that he asks clients a lot, and it's, what would it look like if it was easy? And the reason I think this is such a powerful question is because what our tendency is and what we're conditioned to do based on, our cultures, our, friend circles, our families, the media, and then, social media and influencers, where we are very practiced at making things more difficult. So if somebody's like, I want to lose fat, they don't ask, what would it look like if this was easy? What they ask is all the things that they need to do. They're like, I need to start, I need to drastically change everything that I'm doing as far as food goes. I need to change. I can't have, I can't have burgers. I can't have burgers. Diet soda is bad for you. Um, and they just make a list of 1,000 things that are preventing them from losing fat loss or losing fat. They can't travel, they can't go on vacation, they can't do this. And so we create all this stuff and we're making it more difficult because we're conditioned to. So that's fine. But what if it was easy? What would that look like? And that leads us, the reason this question is so great is because it leads us to solutions and paths and doors that we would never have considered. Like, um, and before I even give some examples of that, um, we have a tendency to immediately try to close that loop and answer that question. And usually, if we try to close the loop as quickly as possible, which is what we're conditioned to do, the only way we could close it is based off of preconceived ideas or things that we already know, which have not been helpful anyway. So you're gonna try to close or answer this question with things that aren't working, with things that are making it more difficult. So one of the things that I said was, and when you ask this question of yourself, what would it look like if it was easy? Leave the loop open. Don't rush to fill in that gap of not knowing. Let yourself stay open and receptive, because that's what's going to allow you to then see new doors, see new options, see different perspectives. But if you go, oh, how can I make this look easy, or what would it look like if this was easy, and then you try to answer that question, or if you're purposely like, I need to find an answer to this, you're going to find answers that are similar to what you've been doing before. So it's counterproductive. A human tendency is, we need to know the answers for everything. Like, we can't sit with unanswered questions or problems. And I talk to clients a lot. I'm like, a lot of the problems, they're not even problems. So just you don't need an answer on this. Leave it alone. Um, we rush to Google. We try to figure it out. But if you most things, if you just leave it alone, like it doesn't, it ends up not even being a problem. But we create it. We create the problem. The more we put our attention on it. So that's something that I really encourage is leave open loops. Again, this is something that I learned, from my mentor Nick Peterson, is get comfortable leaving open loops. Like people go to events all the time and they hear something, that's whatever, and then they rush to like, you know, Google it and like try to do it and like try to make sense of it. You hear something interesting, makes sense to you. Don't need a don't put yourself in a position where you need an answer to it, where it needs to make and fit into whatever perfectly. Allow it to marinate. Just marinate in that information, because you will then, that's being open and receptive, which will lead to all kinds of, you know, realities and experiences that you can't conceive of as a person. You have to leave, another thing that Nick always says, you got to leave room for time and randomness. Okay. If somebody's like, oh man, I've been tracking calories for, 3 weeks and nothing's happening, or it's not happening fast enough, well, you didn't give yourself enough time to actually find out, right? Um, if you're like, oh, I'm not going to start tracking calories because I'm going on a trip, then having to going on that trip will give you new information. You will learn all kinds of things, and the randomness of that will also contribute. So this happens all the time, where a client will go on vacation or whatever, and they're worried, and they come back, and all of a sudden they've lost weight, and they had a great time, and they didn't feel restricted. So anyways, leave open loops and ask that question: what would it look like if it was easy?